a director of social media as well as a mentor here at Magnify Wellness. So kind of just to start off, can you give us a brief introduction about yourself?
Loaded question and answer. So my name is Christina Kantzavelos. I am a licensed clinical social worker, psychotherapist. Recently moved from San Diego, California to Joshua Tree outside of the national park. I got my degree at UCLA, and I had a different idea of what I was going to do as a licensed professional. I ended up doing everything totally the opposite. I really wanted to go into policy and into humanitarian work. And then I did end up delving a little bit into humanitarian work, but I also went into like the medical field as far as working in a hospital, case management. Oh gosh, I've held so many different jobs. But after I was in Mexico for humanitarian work as a disaster mental health professional, I got really sick and realized I could no longer do that. That's not something my body would be able to tolerate moving forward. So I had to focus on getting healthy, and I came back and I returned to home health, which was working with older adults and adults with disabilities. However, I continued to get more and more sick and ill, and had to leave and had to focus just on my health. And that is when I realized it was really difficult to find a therapist who specializes in chronic illness, who understands chronic illness, A, and B, I just had trouble accessing tools that would help me move through my illness and healing, which is why I created a daily journal called the Begin Within Daily Journal. It's a wellness journal, and it's for those with chronic illness and for mental wellness. But even if you do not have those things, if you do not identify with chronic illness or you're not a spoonie, it's great in that it helps you connect dots in your health. I've had so many people say that they have felt empowered by the journal, that they have been able to connect dots in their health and realize that, a certain food was the culprit for why they were feeling bad, or so on and so forth. So it's a true mind, body, spirit journal. It did not exist. I created it when I was really sick. And then I turned my practice into being chronic illness focused. I do still see older adults as well, but my focus is mainly on disabilities, and there are a wide array. So just trying to think, that's that's a short synopsis of how I got to where I am. And because I'm doing private practice, I get to live pretty much anywhere. And I chose Joshua Tree because it's really important for me to be in nature and healing myself at all times. Like, I'm so much better than I was, but I'm still healing myself.
I think that's a really empowering story. And especially as someone who I really get connected with the feeling of like not having like a certain path, like kind of like maneuvering around certain things. I'm a high school senior right now. So with college apps, I'm like trying to figure out what I want to do. So I think like it was really interesting that you kind of like reflected on everything that was going on in your life to like arrive at the point you're at right now. I also see the plants behind you, which I really love. I have like a little succulent back there in my window.
My plant babies, also wonderful for mental health and air purification.
Yeah, I'm not that great at taking care of plants, but I'm working on it. So I saw that you had your journal. So being someone who's like a strong advocate of journaling and like your organization Beginning Within, can you speak to how the process of journaling has kind of helped you with your own journey? And is it always like a process of healing? Like, do you always feel great after you journal, or are there kind of like ups and downs?
So, I always say healing isn't linear. You're not going to feel one specific way, or you're not going to continuously feel better and better. You have to ride these waves sometimes. But I will say something, like, I have never regretted journaling, meditating, working out, grounding, like anything that could possibly benefit your health. You're just generally not going to regret. So yeah, anytime I journal, I feel better. It helps me process the day and what I am going through. And I feel wonderful being able to document everything. And anyone who uses it would feel the same. I wasn't a journaler before. It was when I was really sick that I wanted to just document what I was experiencing, but I wanted to also like talk about my mental, not just my physical health and documenting, you know, what supplements I was taking, what I was eating, how much I was sleeping, but also how my mental health was, because the mind and the body are one. They are not separate. They will never be separate. We are as one. So I tried looking for a mind body journal and could not locate one, which is why this was created. I also was really tired of writing the same prompts over and over every single night. Yeah, but it helped me, like, as I said, I feel like I keep repeating myself, but document as well as connect the dots and realize if a supplement was not doing well with my body. Yeah, and you know, depending on my cycle, if I would start to feel ill right before or after. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. Kind of like notice that your journal differs from a lot of other journals that you might see around. Like in the app that we have, we also have like a space where you can journal. So I appreciate how kind of like that there's that connection where it's not like for like, I think personally I've tried to get into journaling, and it's just, I definitely feel what you said, like it's hard to write about the same thing over and over because obviously you don't feel the same way every day. So I guess just beyond that, what advice do you have for someone who kind of wants to get into journaling or is afraid to like start, or maybe just doesn't have the time to kind of make that commitment per se?
Well, so the journal I created so it has the same prompts and it makes it really easy to just fill in the blanks where you don't have to think too hard about it. The questions are already there. I think it's a little intimidating when you just see blank pages and you're like, where do I start? So, I mean, I'm all about bullet journaling or just, you know, writing down a summary of your day. Even if it takes you just a few minutes, you're going to feel so much better afterwards. And journaling is linked to a lot of health benefits as well. They've noticed that people who journal like if they have wounds, they will heal quicker, and they'll notice like a decrease in pain and so many other physical connections, and just better mental health wellness as well. So yeah, it's a matter of starting, but if you need that help, then that's what journals with prompts are there for. You know, whether it be mine or any other ones, there's so many beautiful ones out there. That's a great place to start. And I've actually had people say they started with my journal and then they were able to just get a blank notebook and continue on from there. So that's cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really interesting. Also, when you held up your journal, I don't know if like you have a clear answer to this, but I saw kind of like a very simplistic design. So do you have any like specific inspiration that like prompted the design you put on your journal?
So I'm also an artist, and so I love drawing mountains. And I mean, for this, like the mountain is definitely a metaphor for those of us with chronic illness or anyone who's just living life actually. You know, how a reminder to look back on how far we climb. We have a tendency not to stop and take a look behind us and say, wow, you know, we've come so far, we've accomplished this much. That we forget to do that, and chronic illness warriors are true warriors, and they climb some very high mountains. And then for this, I love rainbows so much. I think they're so cute and pretty, and so I just made this quick design as well. And I love the colors. I kind of also just wanted like a masculine and feminine energy, right? It depends on what people are feeling and what they're called to, but I love them both equally.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I'm definitely a stickler for like those simplistic designs. I don't like overly dramatic or anything. So I really love the designs on your notebook or your journals, just because like they kind of have, for lack of a better term, they have really good vibes. So yeah.
Thank you. It's also like I want it to feel welcoming too, like not intimidating for someone to open up and start using.
Mm-hmm. So I kind of wanted to move into like a different side of the spectrum. So do you ever feel like with like the work that you've done and your kind of emphasis on journaling and like reflecting on your journey, do you ever feel like you have to present yourself or the people you work with in sort of a positive light? And did you feel this pressure throughout like university or your work life or anything like that? Did you ever feel like there was kind of like this forced positive or kind of like toxic positivity?
I wouldn't say so. No. I think there's a difference between toxic positivity and being hopeful. And it's in holding that energy of hopefulness that I've carried in every single job. I also think it's really important to portray myself as a human being. I'm with everyone in the trenches. Like, just because I'm a therapist doesn't put me above anyone else as a human being. Now, I mean, do you sometimes witness toxic positivity in the world, in this field? Sure, so, sometimes, but I don't tend to surround myself with it. I think, most of the people I work with or I follow on social media are pretty realistic in how they portray themselves. And I don't find toxic positivity to be the most helpful, but I suppose it's better than toxic negativity. It could be worse. So I mean, I think life is a balance. We have to have both. Positivity is really, really important, but it isn't everything. With light, there's shadow.
I think especially in school, like around this kind of time, people are like, it's okay, just be positive, stay happy. And I think like that's not always the case, right? So
it's not. I mean, that's half of it, but that's not all of it. And feeling other emotions other than positive and positivity makes us human. And when we only focus on one emotion, regardless of what it is, we, like, what are we doing with the other emotions we're feeling? Where are they going in our bodies? It's so vital to express and experience all of our emotions, and it's more than healthy and more than okay to. And that includes anger and jealousy and whatever else. Like, these are all very normal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that definitely makes sense. This is kind of like a shorter question, but what has been your favorite place to travel to? Because I've seen that you are a very avid traveler.
So as part of my own self-care, I'm a travel and food writer, and I run a gluten-free publication. So that's really tough. I've had the privilege of visiting over 32 different countries. And I have to say, one of my favorites is Iceland. Like, I cannot wait to return back to Iceland. I thought it was a very cool country for a multitude of reasons, like namely the hot springs. They're so cool. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think like the class I just had, we were talking about what place we'd want to live in forever, and someone said Iceland, and they were like, it's so pretty, and like the nature just compels you to want to keep going back. So
yeah, that's exactly it. The only thing though is like right now they only have like a couple of hours of light during the day. Yeah, that's really tough. Versus in the summer, it's like a couple of hours of darkness. So that would be a hard thing to adjust to, but I'm happy to travel there.
Yeah, that sounds really cool. I think like I live right outside of Seattle. So we have rain for a very long part of the year. So I'm really missing like that sunlight. So I will definitely try to go to Iceland once I can.
Yes. Yeah, you would love it.
Great. So I guess kind of related to that, being someone who like travels so much and loves traveling, how has COVID kind of impacted your traveling? And like, do you have any advice for people who are kind of in that same sphere and just want to get out and like explore?
So yeah, I have not been in an airplane since COVID. So for what I'm doing, I mean, I can't tell anyone else what to do, but if you feel safe enough to do so and comfortable enough to do so, there are some amazing road trips you can take, and being in your car is I think, one of the safest ways to get around these days with COVID. So for me, for example, like if I'm going to travel, I'm going to choose Airbnbs because they're so strict in their sanitization protocols. And I'm going to drive there. And I also usually cook when I travel. So it's nice to have a kitchen. And then, yeah, I mean, you still get to explore, but you're doing it in the safest way possible.
Hmm. And how do you think the COVID-19 pandemic, I guess for people who like can't leave the house or can't travel on road trips, like how do you think that's kind of impacted how people are, I guess, like perceiving the alone time or like perceiving the time inside? And like, do you have any advice for making sure that you're like still making sure you're taking care of yourself and addressing like everything that you're going through?
Yeah, so I'm one of those people, basically. I think it's really important to practice radical self-care and to, like, for example, like I have the privilege of living in a really beautiful place, but like going outside, taking walks, um, getting that vitamin D from the sun if you're able to, being out in nature as much as possible if you have access to it, even if it's like a local park or a local hike, um, eating nutrient dense food, like just nourishing your body as much as you possibly can, kind of like a plant. Kind of like a plant, getting all your water and your nutrients. But then as far as like socialization is concerned, like making sure that, you know, you're, a lot of people are on Zoom right now, like setting up dates to meet with friends online. And if you feel comfortable enough to do like distant meetups, like for example, if you can meet a friend for a walk and stay, you know, at an adequate amount of feet away from them. There are like, for example, I do outdoor yoga where we all show up in masks and we're all very far away from one another. And like in some ways that helps me get my socialization in, but I still feel like I'm being safe. Yeah, there's various ways to feel like you're getting out there. I mean, this is challenging for everyone. This is not, this isn't normal. Like none of us have ever been through it. Like no generation that's alive right now has ever seen anything like this. So we're all experiencing and learning about this for the very first time and together. And I just have to say, like, it is more than okay to ask for help if you're not feeling well. Like you can do all of these things, but maybe it's not enough for you. And that is totally valid. And to be okay to ask for help and to maybe seek guidance from a mental health professional. Like that's what I would recommend.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really love the outdoor yoga thing. I think that's an amazing idea.
Very great.
I think also like for students, so like high school students, university students, what advice do you have for them with like the pressure that's going on? Because obviously schooling has changed a lot, and like even though we had the entire summer, it was a pretty quick transition because we kind of had that hope that like we'd be going back. So what advice do you have for students who might like be stuck at home maybe with their parents, especially like college freshmen who were like expecting to go on campus and they're stuck at home? So what advice do you have for them to kind of like ground themselves?
So like I had mentioned before, all of the things that I'd mentioned before, but also like making time for yourself as much as possible to take care of yourself. Those activities that bring you joy and happiness, what are they? Like find those activities outside of the computer, outside of technology, like leave them to take care. Is it reading, listening to music? Is it playing music? Is it drawing, painting, going on walks, hikes? Anything that puts a smile on your face. Like ensure that you are doing that for yourself, because this is tough. This not just for students, but anyone who's had a transition to working from home full time. You're not used to it, and it's something very new. And then self-compassion and grace, that's also really important. Like if you're having a hard time, don't get down on yourself. Like that's, you know, most of us are. This is a tough time. So showing compassion to what you're experiencing is really helpful.
Mm-hmm. I want to steer in like a different direction now. So you mentioned that you really like cooking. What is your favorite thing? Like, if you could cook anything in the world, what would you want to cook?
Oh, so I cook all of my meals from scratch. So this is my second home. Like this is where I spend most of my time. I love soups. I'm the biggest soup person in the world, I think. I love them. I hope to one day have a little soup cafe. So I think that's pretty much it. I got a really good pho recipe this week and I have the spices to make it. So I'll be experimenting with that. And it's also super immune boosting, which is something we all could use right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've really gotten into cooking like over quarantine. So I always love hearing a lot of new recipes. So that's really great. I'm
What
like,
is your favorite thing to cook?
ah, I'm actually okay. I feel like I'm much better at baking. I love making cinnamon rolls.
Um,
I like making them with bananas because we usually have a lot of leftover bananas. So it
ooh,
makes the dough really fluffy.
yeah, I use bananas instead of eggs in my recipes.
Mm-hmm. Me too.
Oh yeah, see, it's delicious. And I forgot to mention, like, yeah, if you're living at home right now, cooking is a wonderful tool for self-care.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So this is Erin.
Oh, hi.
Will be joining me today.
Hi,
Um,
sorry, I was in class, so I couldn't join. So how was personally, how did you transition from to like a more virtual setting?
So I already was pretty virtual. I think for me though, before I would go to coffee shops to like write my notes and to write in general. So I would leave the house to go do that. And I think a lot of students do. They go to coffee shops, they go to libraries. I like a little bit of noise, so coffee shops are kind of it for me. So the transition for me was the tough part, I should say, or the big challenge was not being able to access these coffee shops anymore, to have to stay home all of the time to do everything. And I've had a couple of days where I'm like, oh my gosh, this is really tough. So I have put it upon myself, and I recommend this to anyone, that you try to leave the house at least once a day for anything, to go to the grocery store, a doctor's appointment, an outdoor exercise activity or class or walk. So I'm now living somewhere a lot more remote in nature, and I have to make an effort to have face-to-face interactions with people. And that's what I realized for myself. So I literally set aside time each day to run errands, to go do something, to leave the house. And I would recommend that to everyone else too.
Mm-hmm.
The difference is that I'm focused just on chronic illness and finding the emotional roots, often traumas associated with how the chronic illness manifested. And my focus, well, I've used various modalities, but yeah, processing through traumas and being very solution focused and neural retraining, which is really important for chronic illness. But the most, in my opinion, important factor is that I understand it as someone with chronic illness. Like no one has to provide me with subtitles of what they're going through and what they're experiencing. So even when I would see therapists before, like I'd have to literally pull out my phone and give them a definition of what my chronic illness was and what it looked like. And that would take a lot of time away from actual therapy. I found it to be really frustrating. So yeah, that's, I think, pretty much it. I'm not saying that you have to have chronic illness to conduct chronic illness therapy. It's just really helpful. And that's why people seek me out personally, is because of my experience with it.
I guess like coming back to like high school, you kind of feel that like idea that if you're going to therapy, then there's something wrong. So I'm glad that like the people who are coming to you kind of like are able to overcome that.
So, and I want to make a point that you don't have to wait to go to therapy until something is wrong. You know, I think therapy is, you know, should be considered preventative care. Like you want to, you know, if I could go back to being in high school, I would have placed myself in therapy for sure. It would have helped me process so much with what I was going through, you know, between school and the social life and family dynamics. I mean, all of those things are really challenging, but therapy wasn't something that was really spoken about in my family. I mean, no one I knew went. I mean, it wasn't something anyone did. It wasn't that I was against it. It just wasn't normalized. And I recommend therapy to everyone, not just because I am a therapist. This goes way before even therapy was even a thought in my mind. So
yeah, that definitely makes sense. My English teacher has someone, I think he's went to like 2 or 3 therapists, and he's like, I thoroughly recommend that everyone in this class should go seek a therapist or someone they can confide in, because it'll help you grow so much.
I love that. It also, you know, it depends on, you know, my family's not from the US, and it depends on your culture too. Like that, this wasn't something normalized in my parents' culture and upbringing. So I think it's great that you have a teacher who said that, because I never had that growing up. Someone, you know, even recommending or offering that up as a resource.
Mm-hmm.
But I
sorry. Yeah, so kind of just like looking around at the works you've done, I've noticed that you put a huge like focus on finding quotes that you resonate with. So I guess this is kind of putting you on the spot. Do you have a quote off the top of your head that you really liked or like that stuck with you?
Well, this is the first quote in the journal I created. It's Thich Nhat Hanh, and it's "Breathe, you are alive." He's a famous Buddhist. He really he didn't make up mindfulness, but he really popularized mindfulness. And I think it's important. Like as long as we are breathing, we are literally alive, and we can accomplish and do anything. And yeah, I love that quote so much.
Oh, that's great. So I guess just on that note, that's pretty much all I had to ask you. Erin, did you want to ask our lovely speaker anything?
No, I'm good. Yeah, I thought it was really interesting, all the works that you do, and I really thoroughly enjoyed all of this stuff.
Oh, thank you so
Did you have any last words you wanted to say to like anyone who might be watching this?
I guess yeah, I mean, thank you, A, for watching, and B, like, just take care of yourself and don't be afraid to ask for help. You know, there is so much courage and vulnerability, and I think we tend to forget that. So yeah, I'm here for you. Apparently your community is here for everyone, so you are not alone. And I think those are my last words. You are not alone.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.